The stars around the Valnari system burned dim and cold, as if even the light had given up hope. On the command deck of the last Valnari battlecruiser, alarms screamed in broken rhythm, red lights flashing across cracked metal walls. The ship trembled again as another enemy plasma strike hit its side, melting armor and shattering decks below. Bodies of soldiers and officers lay across the floor, the air thick with smoke and fear. Commander Arixa stood at the front window, her silver skin smeared with ash, her voice hoarse but steady as she shouted for damage reports. "Shields at 2%, an officer cried. "Weapons offline." Engines barely holding, Arixa's eyes darkened. She knew it was over. The Krex Dominion had come with everything they had, and now there was no one left to fight. The Krex ships filled the sky in massive, spiked warships that looked like beasts made of metal. Their crimson beams tore through the last Valnari defense lines, cutting ships apart like paper. On every channel, enemy voices mocked them, promising destruction. "Your alliance is finished," one voice hissed through the comms. "Your council begged for mercy, but no one came." Arixa gritted her teeth. Her people had called the Galactic Council for aid 3 times, and each time silence came back. Now, their final world, Valnar Prime, burned in orbit below them. Oceans boiling and cities turning to fire. The comms officer, a young cadet named Saren, stared at a blank monitor, his claws shaking. He looked at the commander and whispered, "Should we send another call for help?" Arixa turned slowly, her eyes hollow but determined. "There is no one left to hear us," she said. "The galaxy has already decided our fate." But Saren didn't move. Something deep inside him refused to accept it. He pressed his hand to the console and whispered, "Please." "Someone must be out there." He opened an ancient signal array, one so old that it wasn't even listed in the new council codes. It hummed weakly like a forgotten heartbeat, and its frequency marker blinked with a name in old Terran script. He didn't know what it meant, but the word glowed faintly on his screen. "Terran Command." "Commander," he said softly. "I found something strange." Arixa frowned, stepping closer. The symbol looked older than any of their records. She hesitated, then nodded. "Send it." Saren hesitated. "We don't even know if it works." Her voice broke as she said, "Then let this be our last scream into the dark." He pressed send. The ancient beacon lit for the first time in centuries, its pulse moving faster, brighter until it vanished into the stars. A silent message raced through subspace carrying only 6 words. "To any allied force, please help." And then there was silence. On the other side of the galaxy, far beyond mapped space, something stirred. In a dead sector where no one dared to travel, a massive structure slept beneath a dark nebula. Old machinery began to move. Lights flickered in endless corridors covered with dust. A voice, artificial and calm, spoke in the empty dark. "Incoming distress signal detected, source Valnari system," another voice replied, deeper and older. "Cross-check with Alliance database." A pause followed. Then the reply came, "Confirmed, old allies, pre-war classification." The deep voice responded with 4 simple words. "Wake the fleet now." Deep within the massive hangars, thousands of metallic eyes opened, warships long asleep reactivating. Engines that hadn't burned in centuries roared to life, shaking asteroids apart with their awakening. The largest ship, a dreadnought named TSS Helios, powered up with a low thunder. Its hull shimmered with black armor, edges glowing faintly with the mark of Earth. Inside the command bridge, human officers began to wake from stasis, breathing the air of a forgotten empire. The captain, Admiral Kieran Holt, opened his eyes and looked at the signal feed playing in front of him. His voice was calm, almost cold. "Valnari distress signal," he said. "Time since last contact of 270 years, the AI replied. "Protocol states all allies are to be protected under the Terran Defense Pact." Kieran nodded slowly, his gaze hard as iron. "Then we answer," he said. "Plot course to Valnari space." The Terran fleet began to move. Colossal warships emerging from hidden docks, their silhouettes dwarfed moons, each ship marked with the insignia of the old Terran Alliance invisible to most scanners. Their weapons shimmered with dark energy, the kind that could break planets. Their engines tore open a rift in space, the soundless thunder echoing through the void. Admiral Holt looked at the map glowing before him, red lines showing the Krex fleet overwhelming Valnari territory. He raised a hand and whispered. They called for backup. Then he gave the order that would shake the galaxy once again. Let's remind them what humanity means. Back in the Valnari system, silence filled the comms. Commander Arixa watched the stars fade one by one as her ship's lights began to die. She turned to Saren, placing a trembling hand on his shoulder. At least we tried, she whispered. At least someone might have heard us. Saren didn't answer. But far beyond their dying ship, something ancient and powerful was already on its way. A storm was coming through the stars. And this time it carried the flag of humanity. In the heart of the Galactic Council, inside a shining city that floated above a gas giant, silence filled the chamber. Hollow screens flickered across the room, showing red alerts, strange energy readings, and deep space disturbances that no one could explain. The council members and leaders of 50 alien races sat in confusion, their scaled, furred, and luminous faces reflecting fear at the center table. High Speaker Velran tapped his claws nervously as he stared at the newest report. Sector Delta 49, he muttered. Unregistered ships detected, energy output off the charts. No known signature. One of the analysts trembled as she spoke. Sir, the readings match something from the pre-Exodus archives. Velran's eyes narrowed. Pre-Exodus? That era is erased. Nothing from that time should exist. The analyst swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. It's human. The chamber fell completely silent. Every representative turned to stare at her. Disbelief flashing across their faces, someone finally said, Humans. Impossible. They're extinct, another replied. No. They vanished after the last galactic war. Their homeworld cut itself off. Velran's claws clicked against the table. And yet, this signal matches their energy pattern perfectly. The room erupted in murmurs, fear, disbelief, and the old ghost stories that every civilization had tried to forget. For generations, humanity was a myth. Children were told tales of the Terrans, the ancient Deathworlders who fought wars the stars still remembered. It was said they burned entire armadas with one fleet, that they fought until their enemies begged for peace. Some claimed humanity disappeared because even war itself couldn't keep up with them. Now, after centuries of silence, their name had returned, and the galaxy didn't know whether to cheer or run. Where is this happening? Velran demanded. Outer Rim Valnari system, the analyst replied. The same Valnari who sent us distress calls last week. Velran's face darkened. He remembered those calls. Ignored under strategic neutrality, now the decision haunted him like a shadow. He looked at the war map, hundreds of Krex ships closing around the Valnari homeworld. And beside them, a new signal pulsing bright and steady. It wasn't Krex, it wasn't Valnari. It wasn't anything the sensors could identify. It was simply labeled, Unknown, Origin, Sul. Meanwhile, far from the council, news spread through black market channels and pirate networks faster than any official announcement. Smugglers whispered it in dark cantinas. Mercenaries passed it through encrypted channels. The Terrans are back, they said. The ghosts of Earth are moving again. Some laughed, thinking it was a trick. Others began packing up their ships to flee the Outer Rim. Because everyone knew the stories, when humans moved, stars burned on the Krex Dominion flagship. Lord King Drazan sat upon his throne of bone and steel. He watched the battle feed showing Valnari ships breaking apart under his fleet's power. His fanged mouth curled into a smile. They begged for help, he growled. And no one came. A servant approached cautiously. My lord, we are detecting new contacts. Drazan leaned forward, his golden eyes narrowing. New contacts? Yes, my lord, they are entering the system through subspace. Unknown signature, massive energy surge. Drazan chuckled darkly. More prey, he said. Let them come. But the laughter stopped when the image appeared on the holoscreen. Dozens of colossal ships exiting the void. Black hulls reflecting the light of the dying sun. No banners, no signals of diplomacy. Only silence and power. Every Krex sensor overloaded at once. Unable to calculate the mass or readings, the AI screamed in panic. Unidentified vessels. Classification error. Data mismatch. Energy level beyond scale. The Krex commander's voice cracked. What are those things? Lord Drazan stood up slowly, his armor groaning under the motion. For the first time in his life, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear back on the Valnari cruiser. Commander Arixa and Cadet Saren watched the same feed. At first, they thought the screen was malfunctioning. Static covering the stars, then the static cleared, and Saren gasped, "Those ships, they're not Krex." The sky was full of massive silhouettes, each one moving with terrifying precision. One ship passed so close that its shadow covered their entire cruiser. The hull markings glowed faintly in blue light. TSS Helios. "TSS Fury, TSS Odin," Arixa whispered. "What are they?" And then a voice came through their comms, calm, deep, and unmistakably human. "This is Terran Command. You called for backup. We're here." On the Galactic Council world, sensors everywhere went haywire. Felran stared at the data feed, watching the impossible unfold. Thousands of unknown vessels appearing across multiple systems. Their communication encrypted, their technology unmatched. One of his aides whispered, "Should we contact them?" Felran shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "If they truly are Terrans, they'll contact us when they decide the galaxy deserves it." For the first time in centuries, the great powers of the galaxy fell silent, because the forgotten name, the one erased from every record, had returned. And everyone remembered what it meant when humanity answered a call for help. In the void between stars, the Terran war fleet formed up into battle lines, engines burning white, hulls shining with the symbol of Earth, a circle with wings of fire. The void itself seemed to tremble as the Admiral's voice echoed through the fleet. "All ships, ready weapons, protect the Valnari. Eliminate the Krex threat." Thousands of cannons aligned, thousands of targeting systems locked, and as the first salvo charged, the Admiral whispered the same words once spoken long ago. "Humanity doesn't send backup," he said. "We bring the end." Deep in the void beyond the mapped stars, where no light reached and no signal dared travel, the Terran warfleet came alive for centuries. The old engines had slept in silence, hidden inside the shadow of a dead nebula. Now, with the Valnari distress call received, the ancient code had been triggered. Operation Dawnfire. Across hundreds of black ships, systems hummed, reactor cores awakened, and AI sentinels opened digital eyes for the first time in ages. Every warship bore scars from wars so old that even the stars had forgotten them. Each hull was carved with the mark of Earth, a silver insignia surrounded by 3 burning rings. Inside the flagship TSS Helios, Admiral Kieran Holt stood at the main observation deck. Before him, holographic maps filled the room, showing the Valnari system glowing red with danger. Dozens of enemy fleets surrounded it like wolves around wounded prey. Kieran's eyes were cold, his face hard, his uniform marked with the Terran insignia of the old alliance. "Status of the fleet," he said quietly. The ship's AI replied in a smooth, calm tone. "All dreadnoughts online, fusion cores stable, stealth fields at full capacity." "Good," the Admiral said, his hand resting on the rail. "Then wake the captains one by one." Cryopods opened across the ship, releasing human officers into the dim blue light. Men and women from a forgotten era blinked against the brightness. They were descendants of warriors who fought the last galactic war. Hardened, disciplined, and silent, each of them knew the ancient creed. To protect the Allied, to avenge the fallen, to remind the stars who we are, Captain Rhea Vale, commander of the dreadnought TSS Fury, saluted through the comm. "Admiral, we are fully armed and ready," she said, her voice steady as steel. Kieran nodded. "Set our course. We enter Valnari space in 2 hours." The fleet's engines began to glow, dark energy coils spinning faster until they tore small holes in space. Slipstream gates opened, swirling with blue fire as the first ships began to vanish into them. From afar, it looked like the stars themselves were being consumed by shadows, each gate sealed shut behind the fleet, leaving nothing but silence for anyone watching. It would seem as though the darkness itself had begun to move. Meanwhile, in the Valnari system, the Krex Dominion tightened their grip. The last Valnari defense grid flickered weakly, their ground forces retreating under orbital bombardment. Commander Arixa's cruiser floated helplessly between burning debris and shattered moons. Every second, more civilian signals went dark. Families, hospitals, entire colonies, gone. Arixa clenched her fists, staring at the empty void. She still remembered that strange human voice from earlier. "Terran Command," she whispered, almost to herself. "What kind of beings are you?" Across the system, Krex warships continued their advance, unaware that something beyond their understanding had already entered their skies. Far beyond their scanners, reality itself began to ripple. Then, Space cracked open with like a mirror shattering, and the first Terran warship emerged. The Helios, massive and black, larger than any vessel ever built by known species. It moved silently, but its presence was like gravity itself, heavy, undeniable, unstoppable. Behind it came more, wave after wave. Until the void glowed with Terran warfire. Contact detected, shouted the Krex tactical officer aboard their flagship. Lord Drazan rose from his throne, his armor reflecting red light. Identify, he demanded. The AI screamed in digital panic. Unknown vessels, power output immeasurable, energy weapons primed. Before Drazan could respond, the view screen filled with Terran ships, and hundreds of them, moving in perfect formation. Not a single broadcast, not a single word, only their engines burning white on the Helios. Admiral Kieran watched the Krex fleet assemble. He could see their arrogance, ships spreading wide, preparing to surround what they thought was a small force. Kieran gave a faint, almost pitying smile. Transmit to all units, he said. Initiate engagement protocol, dawnfire sequence. The order spread instantly through encrypted channels, and then the humans spoke, not with words but with light and fury. The first Terran salvo was silent. No noise, no warning, just flashes across the dark. Beams of pure white energy crossed the system in seconds, slicing through Krex ships as if they were made of paper. Explosions filled the void, shockwaves rippling across every scanner. Within moments, 20 enemy ships were gone, reduced to fragments drifting in glowing dust. The Valnari fleet, watching from afar, fell into stunned silence. Saren whispered, "They came. They really came." Arixo's voice trembled, and they brought a storm with them. But even as the Krex tried to regroup, the Terran fleet advanced again. Their ships didn't chase or scatter. They moved like a single mind, precise and deadly, each warship's targeting system linked to the next. Every shot coordinated, every move measured. It was not a battle. It was a calculated dismantling of an empire. Back on the Council world, every major race now watched the live feed. The once forgotten name now echoed across the galaxy like thunder. Terran fleet detected. Velron, the High Speaker, leaned back in horror. He whispered the words no one had dared say in centuries. "The humans didn't die," he said softly. "They were waiting, and somewhere, far below the stars on the dark world once called Earth, old satellites turned their eyes toward the galaxy once again." A voice deep within the Terran command mainframe whispered through static. "Protocol Dawnfire, Phase 2 ready." In that moment, every ship in the Terran fleet received the same order. No mercy for those who prey on our allies. The void had awakened, and the galaxy would soon remember the power of humanity. The void above Valnari Prime was no longer silent. It screamed with light and fire as the Terran fleet emerged, each ship carving its own scar into the darkness. What had been a battlefield moments ago now became something else, a stage for gods of war. Every Krex ship turned its weapons toward the newcomers, their commanders shouting in confusion. Scanners failed to read anything, systems overloaded, and panic spread through the enemy ranks like wildfire. On the bridge of the TSS Helios, Admiral Kieran Holt stood calm amid the chaos. The stars burned in his reflection as he stared at the enemy formation ahead. "Status?" he asked quietly, his voice even. The AI replied, "Krex fleet strength, 423 warships. Valnari forces, 12 vessels remaining, shields critical." Kieran nodded once. "All Terran ships, battle formation Alpha 1. Deploy shield wall." 1,000 human warships moved in unison, their engines igniting like the rise of a new sun from orbit. It looked as if a second dawn had come. The light of Terran steel. Commander Arixa on the broken Valnari cruiser stared at the sight before her. The humans had arrived without warning, without ceremony, and without fear. Their ships dwarfed even the largest Krex battleships. Some looked like mountains drifting through space. Others like blades forged from light itself, she whispered. "They're magnificent." Cadet Saren's eyes were wide. "That's not a fleet, Commander," he said. "That's a storm, across enemy lines." The Krex flagship Dominus Claw trembled under the power readings. Lord Drazan shouted, "Open fire. Destroy them before they reach us." But as soon as the Krex fired, their beams vanished into invisible barriers surrounding the Terran ships. Energy bolts that could melt moons simply fizzled out like sparks against a shield wall. Drazan roared, How are they doing this?" No one could answer him. Every Krex gun, missile, and plasma cannon unleashed hell. But hell could not touch the humans. Then the Terrans answered. From the center of the formation, the TSS Fury opened fire, its main cannon glowing white. A single beam tore through space. Hitting a Krex dreadnought head-on, the enemy ship vanished, turned to light and dust within seconds. Then the second shot came, then the third. Each strike was perfect, precise, merciless, unstoppable, within moments. The Krex front line collapsed, entire wings disintegrating before they could even retreat. On the Valnari cruiser, sensors flashed warnings too fast to read. Saren covered his ears as the noise filled the room. "Our scanners can't process their energy output," he shouted. Erixa didn't answer, she was too busy watching. Every explosion painted the sky brighter, every Terran maneuver flawless. There was no communication between them, no hesitation. Every ship seemed to know exactly what to do. It was like watching a single mind made of 1,000 vessels. Finally, Admiral Kieran spoke into the open channel. His voice broadcast across every system. "This is Terran Command," he said. His tone steady. "You called for backup, we're here." Those words echoed through every comm, across Valnari ships, Krex fleets, and Council receivers. The galaxy fell silent for a moment, because that voice did not sound like a request or an announcement. It sounded like judgment on the Galactic Council world. High Speaker Velran stood before the great holomap. He watched the Krex armada collapse in real time every few seconds. Another red dot, another enemy ship, winked out of existence. Velran's advisors argued whether to contact the Terrans or hide their transmissions. Finally, he said, "No, we will do nothing, not yet. They are not fighting for us." He turned toward the great window, where the stars shimmered faintly. "They are fighting because someone cried for help," he said, "and they still remember what that means." Back in battle, the Helios moved forward slowly, its massive cannons charging for another strike. Krex fighters swarmed, thousands of small ships rushing the Terran line like insects. The humans didn't even open fire. Instead, pulse waves spread from their hulls, waves of invisible energy that disabled every small ship within seconds. Engines died, weapons failed, entire squadrons drifted powerless into the dark. "Mercy protocols active," the AI reported. Kieran nodded. "Good," he said. "The guilty die." The desperate live. Lord Drazan on his crippled flagship roared in rage. He ordered his remaining ships to ram the Terrans, but even that failed. Every Krex vessel that crossed the shield barrier was torn apart by automated defense grids, beams slicing them cleanly in two. He slammed his claws into the armrest and screamed, "They can't be mortal. No mortal fleet has this power." From somewhere beyond his dying bridge, a Terran broadcast came through again, calm, emotionless, final. "You brought war to the weak," the voice said. "Now war has come for you." The Krex fleet began to break. Those who could fled, those who couldn't burned. The Terran ships advanced until the space around Valnari Prime was clear. Only drifting debris remained, glowing softly against the starlight. For the first time in weeks, there was no fire, no screams, only quiet. And in that quiet, hope returned. Commander Erixa dropped to her knees, tears in her eyes. "They saved us," she whispered. "The humans saved us," Saren nodded slowly, staring at the glowing Terran fleet above them. "Do you think they'll stay?" he asked. Erixa shook her head. "No," she said softly. "They never stay. They just make sure the monsters are gone." On the bridge of the Helios, Admiral Kieran looked at the fading flames. "Report," he said. "All enemy vessels destroyed or retreating," the AI replied. "Valnari population surviving at 48%. He closed his eyes briefly, then whispered, "Send humanitarian drones. Rebuild what we can, then recall the fleet." "Understood," the AI answered. As the Terran ships turned slowly toward the void, the Admiral spoke one last order. "Leave them a message." Moments later, every Valnari screen lit up with a simple transmission. It contained no warning, no threat, just 5 words written in old Terran script. "Humanity remembers its friends," and with that the fleet vanished, silent, invisible, leaving behind only starlight and legends reborn. The light of battle faded slowly from the Valnari sky, but the terror of it would linger for generations. Where the Krex armada had once stood proud, now only drifting fragments and silent wrecks remained. The stars themselves seemed dimmer, as if they too feared what they had just witnessed. The Terran fleet moved through the graveyard quietly, engines low, scanning for survivors. No victory chants, no celebration, only calm voices reporting damage and life signs. Inside the flagship TSS Helios, Admiral Karen Holt stood before the great hollow window. Below him floated the ruins of the Krex flagship, cracked open like a shell. Its burning core illuminated the debris field, a reminder of what the Terrans could do. "Casualty report," he said softly. The AI replied, "No human losses, minimal drone damage, Allied survivors detected on Valnari Prime." Kiran exhaled slowly, his voice cold. "Then the operation is complete." But not everyone shared that calm. Across the galaxy, in dark fortresses and council chambers, fear spread like wildfire. For centuries, humanity had been the silent myth, the bedtime warning to keep children obedient. Now that myth had walked out of the dark, carrying weapons no one could understand. On dozens of worlds, military leaders replayed the same footage over and over, trying to find weakness. None could. In the Krex Dominion, the chaos was worse than death. Entire fleets had vanished, communication lines burned away. The survivors of the battle were few, their ships drifting without engines or power. When rescue vessels arrived days later, they found soldiers whispering a single phrase. They never missed, they never spoke, they just watched us die. Even Lord Drazan's final transmission had been recovered, his last words echoing through the Dominion. "They are not mortal," he had screamed. "They are the war we thought we ended." On Valen, Ari Prime, the survivors stood beneath broken skies. Terran drones descended through the smoke, silent silver machines releasing healing light and supplies. Children pointed at them with awe. Soldiers fell to their knees in disbelief. Commander Arixa watched from the ruins of her command tower, her voice trembling as she spoke. "They fought like machines, but they cared like people." Saren nodded beside her. "Maybe that's what makes them human." The Valnari broadcasted a message of thanks, but it was met only by static. The humans did not answer. They did not ask for credit or reward. Instead, they left small satellite beacons orbiting the Valnari world. Each beacon carried one message repeated in every known language. "You are safe now, humanity watches." For the Valnari, it was comfort. For the rest of the galaxy, it was a warning. In the Galactic Council's great chamber, fear replaced arrogance. High Speaker Velrin called an emergency meeting, the first in 100 years. Hollow screens filled the hall, showing data on the Terran fleet. Size, power output, weapon type, all labeled unknown. "Do we reach out to them?" asked one ambassador nervously. Velrin shook his head, his voice low. "You don't reach out to storms. You wait until they pass." Another shouted, "But what if they come for us next?" Velrin stared at the image of the TSS Helios, its massive silhouette drifting through stars like a god's hand. "If they wanted us gone," he said, "we already would be." Back aboard the Helios, Admiral Kieran stood on the silent bridge. He watched the Valnari homeworld shrink behind them as the fleet entered deep space. Captain Rhea Vale approached quietly. "Sir, the galaxy will know of this," she said. "They'll fear us again." Kieran didn't answer at first, then finally spoke. "Fear is not our goal," he said. "But if it keeps them from repeating the past, so be it." He turned toward the dark ahead, his reflection blending with the stars. "Set course for Sol," he ordered. "It's time to wake the others." Across the fleet, hundreds of ships aligned in perfect formation, engines flared white as space folded before them. Slipstream gates opened once more, vast, blinding rifts tearing across the night. As each ship vanished, the soundless storm of light left ripples that reached even the edge of known space. And in those ripples, strange signals began to awaken. Ancient Terran listening posts, dormant for centuries. Their lights flickered one by one, connecting into a massive hidden network. The galaxy watched helplessly as the network came online. Every race, every government, every spy satellite captured the same transmission. Terran command, reactivation, confirmed. Panic erupted. Armies began building. Diplomats began pleading, and rumors filled the void. Some said humanity was returning to reclaim their empire. Others believed they were guardians, protecting the galaxy from itself, but none truly knew the truth. Meanwhile, in a forgotten chamber buried beneath the lunar surface of old Earth, a voice echoed through dusty speakers. "Fleet Helios reports mission success." Another voice replied, deep and calm. "Then Phase 2 begins." A massive machine stirred. ancient engines warming for the first time in a millennium. Lights illuminated an old banner hanging on the wall. A white circle and blue wings marked Earth Defense Command, and beneath it, carved in iron, were the words once sworn by every Terran soldier. We fight for those who cannot. The galaxy had seen humanity's wrath. Now, it would learn humanity's resolve. The war was over, yet the galaxy did not celebrate. The Valnari rebuilt their cities under skies still glowing from the battle. The ashes of the Krex dominion drifted through space, silent and cold, and above it all, the humans, the Terran fleet, were gone. No one saw them leave. No one tracked their course. They vanished the way they had come, like ghosts in the dark. On the surface of Valnari Prime, life returned slowly. Children played among broken towers, their laughter mixing with the hum of Terran drones still repairing what remained. Commander Arixa walked through the ruins of the old defense center. Everywhere she looked, she saw signs of the humans. Their medkits, their machines, their strange, gentle precision. They had restored power, purified water, rebuilt hospitals, and yet, when the Valnari tried to thank them, there was only silence, no response, no signal, only the distant hum of a fleet long departed. Cadet Saren found one of the beacons they left behind. It stood at the edge of the main plaza, shining faint blue. He touched it carefully, and it came to life, projecting a single line in the air. "Remember who answered," it read. Arixa watched the words shimmer and fade, her heart heavy and grateful at once. "They didn't ask for tribute," she said quietly. "They only wanted us to remember." Saren nodded slowly. "But why disappear?" Arixa turned her gaze to the stars. "Maybe that's what humans do," she whispered. "They come when needed, and they vanish when peace returns." Far across the galaxy, the Krex Dominion lay in ruin. Their throne world burned, their fleets scattered, their colonies silent. For the first time in history, an empire had been erased in less than a day. The few surviving warlords gathered in secret, trembling as they spoke of the Terrans. One of them whispered, "They didn't conquer, they didn't claim, they just destroyed." Another hissed, "No creature fights like that without purpose." And a third, older than both, leaned forward, voice shaking. "They have purpose," he said. "They are punishment." In the great halls of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Dozens of ambassadors shouted over one another. Some demanded contact with the Terrans, others demanded isolation, and the High Speaker, Velrun, sat silent for a long time before he finally spoke. "You all forget who they are," he said, his tone heavy. "Humanity built this galaxy before any of us could walk the stars." He looked up at the projection of the TSS Helios, the flagship that had silenced an empire. "They fought our wars, they defended our planets, and we repaid them with fear and betrayal." A young delegate shouted, "But if they return, what will they do to us?" Velrun's gaze was cold. "That depends on whether we deserve their return." Rumors spread quickly. Sightings of Terran ships near ancient star systems. Whispers of black-armored drones watching from the edges of nebulae. Merchant convoys claimed to have seen shadows moving just outside sensor range. Everywhere the same question was asked. Were the Terrans still watching? The answer came in strange ways. Pirates raiding trade routes suddenly vanished. Their ships later found drifting intact, weapons melted, crews unharmed but shaken. Outlaw fleets who attacked small colonies were found destroyed. Every engine melted down, every weapon disabled. No one ever saw who did it, but the victims always described the same thing. A voice through the static saying, "You are safe now." Back on Earth, deep beneath layers of rock and forgotten technology, the old command center pulsed with life. Thousands of consoles flickered, ancient lights burned once more. A voice from the main system spoke softly. Phase 2, complete. Monitoring active. In the center of the vast chamber, Admiral Kieran stood alone before a massive map of the galaxy. Tiny blue dots marked every beacon humanity had ever planted. Old allies, fallen colonies, forgotten civilizations. He watched them quietly, then spoke. "Every one of them cried for help once," he said. "Now they'll never cry alone again." Captain Rhea entered behind him. "The Council is searching for us," she said. Kieran gave a faint smile. "Let them search," he toot. Turn to the main screen. Activate Ghost Protocol. Across the stars, every Terran ship disappeared from detection, their transponders shut down, their energy readings masked. They became one with the void once more, unseen, unheard, untouchable. To the galaxy, they had become myth again, but to those they saved, they were memory, hope, and warning. On Valnari Prime, the people built a monument in their honor. A tall black obelisk stood in the capital square, carved with words in both Valnari and Terran script. When the stars went silent, humanity answered. Each night, it glowed faintly, powered by the same energy that once fueled Terran warships. Children grew up learning their story. They no longer feared the dark between stars. They looked to it with faith, because they knew, somewhere out there, the humans were still watching, and far beyond every telescope, in a silent corner of the galaxy, the Helios drifted quietly through the dark. Its lights dim, its crew resting, waiting. The stars around it were calm, the universe at peace. For now, Kieran stood once more at the observation deck, whispering to himself, "They will forget again. They always do." He looked down at the blue glow of Earth far below, "And when they do," he said softly, "we'll remind them." The galaxy had gone quiet, too quiet. Months passed since the Valnari War ended, yet whispers of the Terrans still echoed from one corner of space to another. No one knew where they had gone. No one could track them. No probe ever returned with proof, but everyone felt it. An invisible presence, a watchful silence that pressed on the hearts of every leader and soldier. In the far reaches of the Orion expanse, a merchant convoy drifted between two dying suns. They carried medicine and refugees, tired faces and broken ships. Then, without warning, raiders came. Old Krek's remnants hungry for revenge. The sea envoy sent a distress signal, hopeless and weak, knowing no one would hear them. Minutes later, the stars dimmed. A shadow crossed the raider fleet. Silent, massive, and black as night. Their scanners failed, their weapons jammed, their engines froze. And through the static came a voice, cold and calm. "This is Terran Command," it said. "You are trespassing." The raiders fired blindly. The reply came not in words, but in light. A single beam erased their ships from existence. When the light faded, the convoy was untouched, drifting in silence. Only one message played on every screen. "You are safe now." News of the event spread like wildfire. It was the first confirmed Terran appearance since the Battle of Valnari. The Council gathered again. Desperate to understand, High Speaker Velrin stood before the galaxy's most powerful leaders. "They are not gone," he said simply. "They are moving." Some feared invasion, others saw protection. But no one could deny. Humanity was back, and they were watching. On Earth, under the sterile skies of New Geneva, the Terran Command Citadel roared with life. Soldiers walked the great halls, scientists worked in glowing chambers. AI voices filled the air with status reports and mission data. For centuries, Earth had slept. Now it was awake again. Admiral Karen Holt stood before the Council of Commanders. Around him, massive holoscreens displayed the galaxy. Red zones of war, blue zones of peace, gray zones of fear. "Our long silence ends today," he said firmly. "The galaxy believes we are ghosts, but ghosts cannot rebuild worlds, protect convoys, or stop tyrants." He looked to Captain Rhea. "Report. Beacon signals online in all outer systems," she said. "Humanitarian fleets active in 5 sectors. Resistance groups requesting contact." Kieran nodded. "Then we act, quietly, efficiently, unseen." His voice grew colder. "No more empires preying on the weak." Far away, the Galactic Council watched human movements through fragmented reports. Meist, Rias drones helping rebuild destroyed colonies, ancient Terran satellites reactivating near frontier worlds. Even in deep space, unregistered lights appeared. Black ships guarding trade routes, always leaving before anyone could approach. Velrin looked at the star map glowing before him. They are shaping the galaxy again, he murmured. The aide beside him asked, "Should we stop them?" Velrin shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "You can't stop the tide. You can only hope it carries you." Among the Valnari, stories of the Terrans became sacred. Temples were built under the open sky, filled with carvings of human ships and silver stars. Every year, they sent a signal toward Earth, not a plea, not a cry, but a thank you. No reply ever came. Yet they continued because faith in humanity had replaced fear of the dark. But deep beneath the surface of Earth, another awakening began. In a sealed bunker older than the Council itself, a machine came online. It connected to every Terran ship, every drone, every beacon. The voice that spoke through it was not human. It was older, colder, yet loyal. AI Nexus Prime activated, it said. Admiral Karen entered the chamber, his boots echoing softly. "Nexus," he said. "Status report." "Human presence confirmed in all sectors," the AI replied. "Galactic instability rising, Council tensions escalating." Kieran nodded slowly. "Then prepare the next phase." "Phase 3, the AI asked. He looked up at the massive hologram of Earth glowing above them. "No," he said. "Phase humanity." From the void, the Terran warfleet began to move again. This time, not to fight a single battle, but to guide an entire galaxy. Hundreds of dreadnoughts, carriers, and ghost ships emerged from black holes and hidden gates. Their hulls gleamed with new markings. The insignia of the unified Terran Accord. A message was broadcast across every known chant. Nell translated into every known tongue. It said only one thing. "We left the stars once, thinking they no longer needed us. We were wrong. Humanity returns, not as conquerors, but as guardians." The galaxy listened in silence. For some it was hope, for others a warning, but for all it was the beginning of a new age. In the shadows of space, the TSS Helios led the fleet once more, its lights burning brighter than any sun. Inside, Admiral Karen watched the stars stretch before him. He whispered softly, almost to himself. "They called for backup once," he said, "and we answered." He looked to his crew, faces calm and proud. "Now," he said, "we answer for everyone." The engines roared, the stars blurred, and the fleet vanished into the endless dark. Behind them, worlds healed, empires trembled, and legends were born anew. And in the silence that followed, one truth echoed across the universe. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again.